As a music producer, I've used a lot of tools to try and tell me whether my music sounds good or not. And I always seem to be coming back to the first one that changed everything for me. As you guys know, I do a feedback stream, and you guys have seen me make tracks sound better by using this tool. And in today's video, I want to do an updated video on span and how I use it, and show you a little bit of the thought process when I'm looking at span so that you can do the same for your tracks. So here I have an old man track I've been working on. We're gonna bring up span. And I love span because first off, it's very easy on the eyes, but it reveals a lot. First thing that you can use it for is for leveling your open hat and your close hats. I made multiple different kinds of genres, and it seems to be a rule that all of them follow, that the high frequencies will usually correlate, be close to the low frequency output that you have. So for example here, right? Let's say that I had the idea of like, oh, I'm going to put an open hat, but I just don't know where to level it at, or I'm not in a good environment to make that decision, or my ears are shot from listening to my wife talk. Span is telling me that we are down here in terms of the high frequencies. And again, to me, this already looks wrong. So I'm looking at the shape of the image. Now, as you reference other people's music, as you run span on them, you're going to pick up on a lot of similarities between some of the professional tracks. Now, I do warn you, not all professional tracks are going to be the 100% ideally mixed. Notice that as I get higher and I start following that rule, now it sounds like it's balanced. And that's the cool thing about span. Let's assume that I didn't, or I couldn't hear anything. I would be able to make that decision, level up the open hat. This guy up. And again, I'm just looking at the peak. Now, it sounds a little loud to me. See that it's poking out like a sore thumb. And again, the bass is somewhat balancing around 42. So I'm going to use 42 as my control. I'm going to lower some of these down. And now we're back. Hey. Now we have a tambourine. I can solo it if I wanted to. Just bring it up. Again, 42 is my quality control, so we're going to leave it there. Ooh. Okay, let's put instruments. I noticed too with span is that when I have big crashes and like effects, like uplifters, sometimes your ears just get so accustomed to the pounding that these kind of sounds give that if you have too much of it, it's hard to tell sometimes. So if you look at span, a lot of the times, this is the #1 culprit of people's tracks sounding shot, bruh. Like shot. Bruh. Disrespectful. Like you'll see the fucking jump in volume. So again, with the white noise, you know, you can see on span. You can also see it coming down. So if it's too loud, you will be able to tell. Okay, now the other thing with span that's super cool is for leveling your lead frequencies. And this one, I did a little jam session last night, so I don't know how it's gonna look on span. I used my ears with my little Bluetooth speaker because the kids were sleeping. That's why I have it, by the way. So I did a little jam sesh. Ole. Okay, so the cool thing about span is that I can also use it to level my leads. Now, again, assuming that we have the low end and the high frequencies kind of set in stone. Something weird in this guy here, I think it's this open hat. I mean, look at that, bro. Like, that's a little too nasty. Let's move it down. If I wanted to level this lead, what I want to do with it is I want to put it to where like you can see the little peaks coming out of the ground like little diglets, but you don't want to get too close to the volume of the bass and the high frequencies. So in the middle, you want to be up there, but not too much. So here we go, right? If I put this quiet, you can see that this looks fine, but the lead doesn't pop out and it doesn't feel full, and it feels a little rather like, son, I don't need to see the lights, son, let me out. So we can use span to level it. Now, if it's a main lead, then you want it to be up there because the human brain's gonna pretty much make the listener pay attention to it. So bring it up. And I think that's perfect. Depending on the kind of song you're making, you know, the low end is gonna play a huge role, right? In how it looks. So with span, I can go in with an EQ and I can start to say, okay, I've seen some other people's tracks where like there's more mid-lows than lows like this. So I can make the decision of looking at the kick and saying, oh, I think the kick needs a bit more knock. So we're gonna give it knock, a little less mids. As we get closer to what I want, I just realized that I made a huge sound design mistake. And that is that the bass was lacking a lot of the vibe because this resonance should come up. And as this resonance comes up, look how much fuller the bass sounds and how much fuller it looks. Ooh. So this is one of the pros of using, again, span. Even when I do sound design, there's a certain way I want the basses to look as I make the presets for you guys because I know what a good bass looks like. And if I follow all the theory, if I don't do weird stuff, if I follow the phase correlation between layering of sounds and not overdoing a top layer, etc., then I instantly know that the bass will sound good for the person using it, where they're gonna have to use very minimal effort to make it work. Here's another track I started yesterday, and I like this one because there's a good example of using span. There's this lead that happens right here, and we can see how it dictates. Okay, and this lead is hard because it's crowding that mid-low section, but when we hear the lead, we know that, that's where a lot of the power is coming from, but too much of it obviously makes it sound a little too boxy. So what I could use this for is, again, I could look at the bass that I have in this track, and I can grab an EQ and reduce a bit there to allow that lead to pop through. But even then, you can see compared to the bass, that lead is loud. So we need to quiet it a bit. Even though that's so weak, let's move this, you can see it. Now we're talking. Look, you can see it up. And as we see this, we can see there's some room in the mid highs in the mid. So then I might decide to process the lead further or boost on the lead a lot to allow for, again, some of the feeling of that frequency if I'm not going to come in with anything else. Yeah. Hey, let's fucking go. Let the body flow, take control, ecstasy up your nose. What? I'm in cocaine. Let the body. From here we have a vocal, and this is another great example. We can see that it's kind of weak, so I can bring this guy in here. Boost. Whoa. And as we move. Ooh. Okay, now as a sound designer, I see this lead here. And there's too much mid-highs and not enough lows. If we follow the rule, again, the low end is going to be one of the loudest things in span, and everything else has to kind of fall below. That is way too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up. I'm actually going to reduce a bit more on the highs. What? In fact, I think that's there's a crash. There you go. Oh my God. Neubauer, dog. Let's move it. Leveling, we start seeing it. More highs, my something real good now. And again, we're just looking at everything as a whole. The other thing too is you can see resonances that will peak out of the song. Like for instance, if I grab this string and go -12, which seems to be the right decision for this record. There you go. The strings have a lot of resonance. Now watch what happens if I bring it up. In fact, you know what? The string could be a lot louder now that I'm seeing it. But look, you see those popping out like diglets, the trios. So that's not right. So we know, okay, let's turn it down. A little less. There we go. This guy, Span is an amazing tool that you can use to, again, help you level stuff. At the end of the day, you need to trust your ear. So it's not going to solve issues. It's not going to solve a lot, but it's still something good that can guide you. And whenever I see your tracks and I run them through Span and I see weird stuff like that, then of course it's common sense to go, oh, I haven't seen that in any other track out there. So maybe that's unwanted stuff. And then that's when I come in with any cue, like I'm about to go to Vietnam and I start chopping shit, chopping heads, homie. With that being said, guys, if you enjoyed this video, consider supporting my sound design work over at evilsounds.com, used by some of your favorite producers. And if you want to continue your knowledge forward, consider watching the video I just released yesterday on how to make melodic techno style melodies. A few techniques that you can use, but we all know the adept, the advanced producer knows how to use those videos to their advantage, because you don't need to make melodic techno to learn from that video, and you can use those techniques in your own genre to be unique, get inspired, and not sound like everyone else.